we are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. We are at special location. We are at Reeves, specifically the Porsche section in Tampa, with a special guest tonight, Chris. Thank you for coming on,
guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Special guest. He's got some lineage here, family-owned business, and we're talking to the man himself. And thanks for taking time, and thanks for having us in the showroom and letting us take up some of your evening.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. It's fun.
Yeah, awesome. So got a fun-filled show, and we're going to talk about a lot of topics and things like that. So let's go ahead and get rolling, right, Aaron?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So like I said, I kind of alluded to it already that there's some lineage here. So let's talk about the Reeves history and how that all ties in and how you guys have grown, and you've always been in the Tampa Bay area, and you know how you're a family-owned business, and how this monster has created, and you guys own like this section of Tampa now.
Definitely, yeah. So my grandfather started the company in 1971. Mm-hmm. We've always been here, although, and by here I mean the corner of Florida and Fowler Avenue. Down the way on Florida, we had started out with Subaru. And then in 1971, started out with Volkswagen. In 1972, we added Porsche and we added Audi. So we've had Porsche since 1972.
Wow, a long time. Huh?
Yeah. So I mean, that would have been, Type 1 still days for 911, right?
Yeah.
So been able to grow with the brand, and then added a total of, we have 7 brands now. So we have BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, Subaru, Land Rover, and Maserati. We had Hummer for a little while. We actually had them when they were AM General. So it's cool. But yeah, so Porsche has been a brand that's been a staple at the dealership since the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a significant amount of time.
Totally. And it's, so it's been fun because, you really get to see the brand go from the sports car, obviously still making the iconic 911, but then adding these, and seeing models come and go, and then actually being here now at probably, one of the most exciting times to be associated with the brand. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, some revolutionary stuff coming up, right?
Totally.
And we'll talk about that in the show. So some more revolutionary stuff for you guys too, because you have a big project going on in the background, right? As far as to try to make some more space for you guys. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, one of the main things that my grandfather always, made a point, and this is something that still kind of drives the philosophy, is that, wanted customers to come in and feel like they were a guest in somebody's house. So beyond the people, beyond the service experience, you got to have the facilities to make that happen. So right now we're building a almost 900 space parking garage right on Central Avenue, building a new Land Rover facility, and we've been in this Porsche building that we're in for 5 years. So that's the new gen building, and it's been huge, and to provide the ultimate experience for customers. So
yeah, it's super nice. I mean, you guys will see it in the vlog. We're going to post it on Monday. We did a walk around. Chris was nice enough to take us to the service area. Their extra storage here. Their showroom is outstanding. It's top notch, first rate facility. It's super nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then everybody that works here too is super knowledgeable. Everybody's very helpful. Anything they can get you, anything that you expect in a family-owned business, right? So I think it's
totally, and I appreciate you pointing that out. Yeah, because it's definitely something we want to drive that home. We want people to feel comfortable. The car buying process can be a little bit strenuous. There's a lot of cars out there. There's a lot of stuff to know. We want to get away from that stigma surrounding the car salesman in the business and stuff. So, as accommodating, as hospitable as we can be, that's what we want to do. So.
Yeah, and I think you guys are. I think you guys are very, very good at that. We've been here multiple times, and we've done car reviews, and everybody from, whether we know them at the moment has been very courteous, the minute you walk in the door. And I think the nice thing is, too, is they're educational too, right? Like you said, there's so many model differences, and everybody will say, hey, what's the difference with this car? And your sales staff is so educated where they're just to be able to like, okay, well, this is an S model and this is why it's an S model and things like that. So, and I think that's, to be said, especially with your family, to still have that staying power since 1972 says a lot about your family and about a lot about like your buy-in to the brand specifically. Like, obviously you guys are very good at it. You've added other brands. Like you're at the core of your culture, what you do is like treat everyone like family, though, right?
Yep,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what we're selling, whether it's an oil change or $1 million 918 Spider, everybody have the same experience.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
So clearly it works, guys. So if you treat people right, I mean, they have staying
That's
power.
right.
They've been here since the 70s, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it's kind of crazy to think about it. Let's talk about that topic for a little bit. We'll have to, just a gee whiz. Obviously, you weren't around and we weren't around then. But to think about long hood 911s being sold in like Tampa, like it's almost kind of feels like you're in like sacred ground, right? I know it's not exactly the same layout it was, but it's kind of neat to think about, like
absolutely,
like the historic, like everybody's like you see the outlaw cars now that people are doing, like Magnus and they're the old 70s cars, and and you're like,
and we had them new,
and they were like they were selling them at the dealership here, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we took and unfortunately had to give back $9.59 deposits. I mean, when they didn't come to that. So, there's a guy that's
when they couldn't like make the like the port or whatever, right? And, like,
so there's a guy that's still here selling Porsches at Porsche of Tampa that was selling Porsches when that car came out and had to return deposits for that car.
That's so cool.
Imagine that. You're like, wow, this car's going to be amazing. And then it's like, no, it's not coming.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe this.
He goes and doesn't jump on that sword. They're like, what do you mean it's not coming? He's like, whoa, look, it's not on me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You have to give somebody their $100,000 deposit back in 87.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's
exactly.
a lot of money.
Yeah. So whatever neurosurgeon that was or something like that.
Exactly.
Like,
somebody like that.
Sorry.
Who knows?
He's like, but Bill Gates is getting one. You're like, well, give him a call. Maybe we'll get you one.
Exactly.
No, but that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that history. I just think that it's so neat, and we're so like fortunate, and thank you for being so welcoming with us and like allowing, working and partnering with us, and I think it's a great thing, as far as we're coming in, there's a new age coming, especially with like the Taycan and all that kind of stuff, and a digital era, and thank you guys for being open to that and like bringing us in and sharing that experience and letting us basically touch your inventory and come in here and giving us the keys to the castle. I mean, that goes to show you guys that Chris and his family and all that stuff, how understanding they are about and seeing the market changes and things that are happening. They're in tune with what's going on. As opposed to like, oh, hey, like we've been, here since the 80s and the building looks exactly the same. And exactly.
And I think that, having that philosophy is very Porsche, right? I mean, having, being kind of cognizant of what the history holds, but also kind of looking ahead to the next generation, the next era. I mean, that's something that Porsche has always been very good at, right? I mean, improving things, but still being aware of what's going on.
Yeah, you made a good point, because actually anytime they release a car, right, like, and they talk about it, they always talk about having one step in the past and one step into the future. Not to forget their history, because it's strong and there's a lot of racing depth there, but always striving to be innovative and always striving for the next thing, right?
For real improvement, right?
Yeah,
over
exactly.
The existing products and the existing philosophy, and
with the customer always the focal point of that, right? Like, so that's kind of
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you're going to keep a customer, when you have a little bit of familiarity in it, but then you're leading the way because you're thinking of the future.
Well, it totally makes sense, right? The culture that they create because of the staying power, because like of all the brands in the world, Porsche are the most loyal customers in the world. Like, once you get into a Porsche, you're almost like 99% of the time you're going to be a Porsche person the rest of your life.
I totally agree. And probably the most knowledgeable customer base as a whole. You know what I mean? You really, if you're going to be here, you got to know your stuff, because your customer knows his stuff.
Exactly.
Or her stuff,
exactly. So. Good point. Very, very good point. So let's roll into a little bit. Obviously, your family could be said for itself, having Porsche and as being one of the major things, staying power with Porsche. But from a personal, like, let's talk about some of your memories. And I know we talked a little bit offline about this earlier when we were doing the tour. But why Porsche for you, and what are some of your fondest early memories, like growing around the dealership and being able to like remember real Porsches and fun times with Porsches?
Absolutely. My dad always had loved Porsche. We went to, growing up, went to Sebring every year to watch Porsche dominate.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially even still today, but at the time, full factory teams. And
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
thing.
Most of the field is consumed by Porsche, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So this is, that's a brand that I've really, really always been passionate about. My dad, when I was a kid, was a salesperson and sales manager here at Porsche. And so he always had, he had cool demos. So I always, and Mike alluded to this. I was talking to him. My dad had a 964 turbo when I was a kid as a demo, and there was always this one corner heading to school that he could just really fly around that corner, and we couldn't do it when he was driving mom's car or some other demo. We could only do it when he had a Porsche. So when I got up for school in the morning and I saw he had a 911 in the garage, I knew the trip to school was going to be fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yes, I want to go to school today.
Let's go. Absolutely. Yep. We're going to be on time.
That's so awesome. Like, how old were you when that was happening? Do you remember?
So heading to probably 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Earliest memories of Porsche.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So young. My mom was at home. So with my brother, he was very young. He just born, and so my dad was doing the driving to school. And it was always fun when we had a 911.
See, that was the good old days too, right? Like prior child seats, so you probably got to sit up
I sat
front.
up front.
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
Yeah. Probably didn't even always have my seatbelt on.
And you're just
who knows?
like, as he's ripping, you're just like, yes,
this is awesome. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so it can explain the addiction, right? No wonder you're just like, he inundated you and like kind of passed on the sickness to you of Porsche at a young age. Of here, son, I'm sick with Porsche, and now you are too.
Another little quick anecdote. So when I was in, it would have been like the 5th grade, we had a people fair. Okay. And so everybody picked somebody to be, and so, you had all the usual suspects, Michael Jordan, a bunch of presidents and things like that. Well, I was Ferry Porsche.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and everybody at school is probably like,
who's that? Exactly. I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. This guy's like legit.
This guy's the creator, man.
Correct. Yeah. So I dressed up like him and sprayed my hair gray and
that's so cool.
Yep. And so it was something that I've always loved.
Runs
Porsche.
deep.
Yeah,
totally.
I was gonna say when you dress up like that's the person you want to be. That's hilarious.
Yep.
That's a really cool story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's transition a little bit. You and I and all of us have talked a little bit about the 992 offline.
Yes.
Very exciting times coming. And you got sent off to basically go to 992 school. You told me all about that. So let's talk about your personal experience, because obviously, very small demographic of people got to experience that. Yeah. And you're one of those ones. So like talk to us about like what your thoughts about the 992, that experience overall, and like what are some key pointers you thought about the 992 that were pretty interesting.
I loved it. I thought that the car, they did a fantastic job. Again, like going back to what we were talking about, being forward thinking, but also being very aware of what the car is. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that really stuck out to me, was the interior. So we've got what I would call a totally modern interior now. We've got the big touchscreen that everybody wants and seems to have in the other brands, and but in a Porsche way, right? Everything's very ergonomic. All the switches are just so that they're in the perfect place, and it's got a real cup holder.
Nice.
For the doctors and executives out there thinking about getting one. They take their coffee in the morning.
Nice.
So I thought one of the things that really stuck out to me was the kind of the daily usability. So the technology, but also paired with the driving dynamics of the car. The split personality, I think, that the 911's always had, where you can drive it, like you just robbed a bank, and you can drive it like your normal daily commute.
Exactly.
So those things are more separate now, in my opinion. You can turn them more on and off.
Okay.
Right? So when you're in sport, attack mode, you're really in attack mode in this car. So it feels, like a,
it's
like
ready to pounce.
It's almost like a GT car. The way it handles and feels.
So they're really delineating between
exactly. And you guys may have seen that I don't know if you saw the 992S on the dyno.
Yeah.
It makes almost as much power as the
that
0.2
was
GT3 RS.
We did
so,
see
it's
that.
a fast car.
Yeah.
And then when you take it out of that mode, to have that phone call on the way to work, or drink your coffee, listen to the listen to P-Card Talks podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more comfortable, takes the bumps a little better, and just really it's a very comfortable drive, but still very Porsche.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things when you experience it, you'll really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it really is they've done a fantastic job.
That's great to hear because speaking about that, I think nowadays, like in our society, we want more, right? Yep. Obviously, and that makes sense. And like, good for Porsche, for doing that in the sense of like making the car compliant that way. In the sense of, as most people know, like if you live in a big city or what have you, there's traffic. There's no way around it. There's
Potholes.
morning traffic. There's,
Absolutely.
there's evening traffic.
Yep.
So it's nice to have a car that will behave in traffic as opposed to maybe a light and flywheel that's gonna die. Like it's sitting in traffic, right?
Rattling
and
sure.
and an AC that's blowing like, ice cubes over you basically in a warm breath, like it does all of the normal things that we expect out of a car very well, but then like you said, you can dial it up. When you put it in Sport Plus, it's ready to like sink its teeth into something, right?
Absolutely. It was, and we did some street and track driving, so it was able to really experience the car in both scenarios, and I mean, it's not going to disappoint.
Nice. Where was that event held at?
It was in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
So there is a place called the Utah Motorsport Campus.
Oh, nice.
And it's a mixed use, but motorsport focused type place. So they've got a rally track. They've got they've got one circuit that they can divide into two layouts. So I mean, it's a really cool place. Like Ken Block and Travis Pastrana were there 2 days before.
Wow.
We were there jumping their rally cars. They had a bunch of hills set up so they could film a bunch. Who knows what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
But it was, can't say enough about the place. It was beautiful. Sort of like a Barber Motorsports type of a type
beautiful.
Of a spot.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's exciting, right? And like, I'm like, we talked a little bit about, unfortunately we're not in Europe. People already have taken delivery, obviously, way before us. We're understandably, I mean, Germany is in Europe, so it makes sense. So,
right.
What have you, but I'm hearing they're here, they're just waiting to be released basically. Like they're just like caged animals right now, right? Like
That's
they're
right.
sitting in ports ready to go, right?
Yes, they are. Yes. The vehicles are stateside. They are ready to be released. And so right now looking at September to start seeing those in your dealers.
So pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's really cool that, like we talked about, the technology thing is they're able to do that on that level of the GT car, but then dial it back down to the comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we're getting from the technology.
Absolutely.
You're not really having to go to the aftermarket anymore.
Yeah.
To get that compliance or that race car feel.
Yeah, I think it's a good point because a lot of the old timers, and that we have a mixed review, since we're global, there's so many people that listen to us in so many different countries. There's old air cooled guys that don't even want to make the shift over to water cooled. That's a whole nother subject. We're not going to go down to that.
There's people out there that still think they should be air cooled.
Yeah, we're not going to go down that, and I think adaptability, right? Being able to pivot is a big thing. Like I'm a big component of, I like classic cars, but I also like what the new stuff is too, right? Like, and from a dealership standpoint, I'm sure Chris is on board for that.
I love
you need both, right?
Absolutely. You
Like,
can
why
never
not?
have too many Porsches.
Exactly.
Yeah, we tell everybody there's no limit per customer.
Buy the
You can have
new
as
one
many
that's
as you
coming
like.
out, and there's nothing wrong with that. You still keep your old one, but buy a new one too, because it is an on and off switch. And I think embrace the technology is the way,
Agreed. And I think that's something that Porsche has always done. I think so.
And I think from an adaptability standpoint, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that. And like, speaking of technology, that transitioned us into the next topic. So let's talk about the Taycan a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Chris has has had some inside information along before this conversation, obviously. And, he's shared some things with us. And so regarding the Taycan, obviously it's been announced, where they're actually doing the big reveal next month. So let's touch on that just a little bit. In your thought, do you think there's not going to be any drastic changes, right? Like from what they've showed, other than the camo stuff. I know they've had the dash camoed the whole time while they're letting people do all that stuff.
We've seen the interior.
Yeah,
now,
and they've kind of showed it, because the 3 years of Apple CarPlay, they kind of revealed it when they did that. When it comes with it, indirectly, right?
Yeah,
that's
they made
total
it about
Porsche.
The Apple CarPlay.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
total
like, hey,
Porsche.
by the way,
here's
this
Easter.
interior.
Yeah, here's the Easter egg.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, but like in your thoughts, when they do the reveal next month in September, there's not going to be a whole lot of changes, you think, right? Personally, I'm not asking for info.
Personally, I think that the interior is what we've seen. From an exterior standpoint, it's hard to tell. I think that depending on the videos you watch out there and see the photos, there's some that give away a little more than others. But Personally, I think that car is more camouflage than it seems like it is.
Yeah.
I think that generally speaking, the car is going to look the way you see it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some nuances and some of the cool, like, little, details about the exterior that are yet to be revealed.
I do agree with that because they did a good job. Like I saw it at Goodwood in person too, and it even standing right there, the way they tried to change, like you really had to stare at the headlight to be able to see where
where
the
it
difference,
really was.
Yeah, where it was.
Yes.
And same thing with the taillight. It's like I've never seen such good camo that really goes on it. Like where you're like, wait a minute, okay, that's where it ends at.
Yeah.
Right. Where does the camo end
Yeah.
and the actual car begin?
I
Exactly.
had this revelation a couple days ago. I was like, Mike, the headlights, do you understand? I just saw it a certain way. I was like, oh,
Yes.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're doing like the actual, like when they were showing the prototype and then they're showing the one that then they put them next together. It finally hit him.
Yeah.
Like the Machine. I was like, you didn't know that? And he's like, I just couldn't see it. And I was
Right.
like, yeah.
The headlights are cool. That real thin. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be I'm as excited as anybody to see the real car. So
Yeah,
it's
I am
gonna be
too,
pretty
actually.
awesome.
I really am. So, like, let's talk a little bit about like how you kind of educated us a little bit. And this may or may not be information for some people out there. I know half the people out there maybe don't know this, but Electrify America is coming, right? Like that's going to be a big thing.
Yes. So Electrify America is a subsidiary of Volkswagen. It was part of some of the diesel stuff. That was one of the things that came out of that, and some of the good that came out of that was them, founding this company. So Electrify America currently they've got 5,000 charging stations around the country already now.
Oh, nice.
So they're building them all the time, and
So they're building as we speak.
correct. And we are partnering with them. Porsche, is partnering with them from the standpoint of what their capability is. So they can do they're going to be able to do the 350 kilowatt hour 800 volt charging that's going to get that Taycan the 250 mile charge in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that for a little while is not going to be necessarily something you're going to be able to have at the house.
Yeah.
Right. So you can get a high output tap put into your house or 240 volt at the minimum and charge your vehicle. But these charging stations
A little different, yeah.
are going to be are a different animal.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think the idea being, how often are you going to park your car in the garage, your Taycan, and it's going to be empty?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good
You're going to
point.
take delivery of it with a full battery, charge it at night.
Good point.
Most people's daily commute's 15, 20 miles, I think.
Exactly.
So you'll be able to maintain it.
For a good
Yeah.
week, yeah.
But the charging network is under construction now and will just continue to grow because Electrify America is not the only company doing this. And besides Tesla, there's a standardized plug, so you'll be able to pull into a charging station and use it in your Taycan.
Yeah.
Now, if it's an Electrify America charging station, they haven't announced officially yet, but between 1 and 3 years of 30-minute charging.
Oh, wow.
So you'll be able to plug in and for free charge your Taycan up for either at least 1 year, but I think it's probably going to be more like 3 years.
Oh, that's pretty wild.
Right, so free gas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You can't beat that, right? Like
Totally.
with the purchase of the car, why not? So and that leads me into the next part of the question where, the next couple calendar years here we got that are coming out, 2021, 2022, 2023 moving forward.
Right.
The development of the Taycan and probably, they've already talked about it. There's going to be different models of it, right? Like there'll be
Yes.
a high-end model just like it comes out. That's going to be the first one, right? Obviously, the big dog is probably going to be the big, and then
I
there's
think
going to be
you're right.
lesser batteries as we go on because guys, this car is here to stay. Porsche's not doing this as like we're just going to run off like 20,000 of these just to
if we
see
can do
what's
it.
going on. Like this is going to be in their lineup now, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
There's 30,000 pre-orders for the car worldwide.
Wow.
So it's already generating a huge amount of traction. It's also just the way things are going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for there was that time period, 5 to 10 years ago where the alternative fuel source, it was like a little bit of everything, diesel and
Yeah.
hybrid and electric and flex fuel and all this different stuff. Seems to be that electrification is the way to go. Porsche is going to continue to electrify their models. So, there's undeniable performance that you get from this stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's not crazy to think we see a hybrid 911 Turbo S
Yeah.
down the road, maybe even a fully
Good point.
electric sports car.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many avenues that Porsche can go down
Yeah.
with this Taycan project. I mean, their initial, I mean, they built $1 billion factory extension.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're going to continue to build
exactly.
the
If you can read between the lines, guys, they're going to get that money back.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
You're right.
They didn't just spend it to spend it.
That's right.
And I think it's interesting too because like, I mean, being, an old school kind of guy liking cars, but I like the new stuff too. Like I said earlier, I think it's an interesting time that we're going to be alive because you and I have talked about this too offline, right? We are going to see the first time in history, even like our grandparents and parents, where granted, they started with electric cars a long, long time ago. Well, they initially started, but then they realized combustion engines were just more convenient and they would work out better for more long term. And then pretty much we've been with combustion engines since then, for 100+ years.
Right.
And now we're going to enter a world where both cars exist in the same world, and one is going to start taking up more of the space than it used to. So I think it's going to be interesting, even from all automakers, right? Like with the Audi e-tron, those kind of cars that are coming out. And I'm sure this is just the beginning because Porsche is going to want to have an all-electric SUV as well, right? Obviously, they're going to have a Macan E.
I think there will be electric Macans down the road for sure.
Of course, or they just change the thing altogether, right, and just call it something else, even like the Taycan. But it's the platforms are there, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yep. And I think that the technology is just going to get
better and
better,
yeah.
and more inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
So it's just going to be easier to make these batteries and so on.
Yeah,
and
the
500-mile range or a 600-mile range.
Totally.
And then when other places, like when the Electrify America, and then maybe when maybe the big oil people start to make a turnover where they're starting to like make stations that actually fill is the charging station. Like when we start seeing that, we really know what's going on.
Yeah,
right?
when you see the Shell charging station, that's when you know that
exactly.
it's like it's the changing of the guard is happening.
When you have to drive 30 miles to get to a gas station to fill up your petrol car,
right?
You know that it's a relic. It's a relic.
Yeah, it's
right?
Yes.
At that point, you're like,
this is a change.
You're like, so there isn't a gas station by my house anymore. How's this work? But yeah, it's interesting, and I think. I didn't put this in the notes, but I think it was an interesting the conversation we had, I want to say a couple months ago when we all went out to lunch and you were talking about, and again, this may sound redundant for some other people, and I kind of knew this, but when you put it in perspective where these cars are getting so smart too, where they're talking to each other and then they're talking to the signals and they're talking to the grid and and this is happening in milliseconds.
Right.
They're all talking to each other, right? To like make traffic flow better, to make things better for everybody.
Safer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's aside from all of the battery stuff and the fuel savings, I think part of it is that the technology that the big batteries and things like that make possible in the cars. Mm-hmm. The LiDAR, the laser radar, the camera systems, all that stuff. I mean, the connectivity between the cars. I mean, that's just going to make everything safer. It's not going to, it's probably a while before it replaces the human element, and because people, even though they don't seem like they're good drivers, we're pretty good drivers.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty relatively attentive, I should say.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think that you're right. I think that the smarter the cars get, the more connected they get, the safer and better everything will be,
mm-hmm.
right? And the cars are eventually, the Taycan, one thing they're already talking about is that they're going to be talking to the grid and talking to the power companies and saying, hey, Mike just parked his Taycan in the garage,
mm-hmm.
but everybody's watching TV and listening to music and the AC's running and the stove's on and all that stuff. So all that stuff goes away. And now we're cranking the power up to charge that Taycan and get it ready for him in the morning.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's I'm glad you said that because that's what I was trying to get out of you. And like, I think that's the really cool part about that is, okay, I know the car learns you, right? And for some people, for the conspiracy theory people, I get it. I'm about to freak you out because you're like, oh my God, Cyberdyne is taking over. Terminator 2 is actually happening.
Yep,
and
Skynet.
It probably will happen someday, but hopefully we'll be long gone before that happens. But the car, that is pretty intelligent though, right? You come home, like you said, it's peak hours. It's still like 6 o'clock. You're cooking dinner for the family. You're doing laundry, whatever you got going on. Okay, as the evening winds down, the car knows to turn the juice up as you're going to bed. Stuff's not running. Now we're at full power and the car's getting everything it needs as you're sleeping, and the whole house is asleep essentially.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly that's the idea. When you plug it in, you don't want to have that instant demand of power because you're just blowing every circuit breaker in your house. Exactly. You kill the neighbor's circuit breakers.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's going to be important for the cars to talk to each other, the power companies. I mean, we already live in such a connected world. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why not?
One more step.
And for all the
Exactly.
kids out there that are listening, this is going to be really good because you can sneak an electric car out pretty easy, right? Remember when
Totally,
we tried to
yeah.
sneak cars out back
For
in the
sure.
day? That's a whole element.
You had to, like,
gotta
push your car
push
down
the
the
car
road.
down the road and then start it up down the road from your parents' house.
But
Like,
then they could be tracked just as well.
that's
so-
true. Well, then the
Yeah,
car,
exactly.
the car will probably tell the kids, like,
Exactly.
you're not allowed to drive me.
Yeah, you're right. Who
Parent
knows?
gets a notification.
Exactly.
We already have. I mean, even with our cars now, we have the app. You can.
Yeah.
There's a geo fence you can
Yeah.
set for your kids.
Good
speed
point.
Fence. I mean,
Exactly.
you're right.
Yeah,
They're
you
gonna-
can't go over that speed limit. Like, you don't get to drive this. It's kind of funny. Just that was a random thought I had. I just
That's
thought about like
hilarious.
thinking
Yeah, no,
about
you're
us like
right.
when we were young. Like, oh man, I want to take my dad's car out. It's like, oh, he's gonna hear me. He's like pushing it out of the garage, pushing it down the road, and
The electric car is just going to deny you access.
Yeah,
Still going to have
exactly.
to call an Uber, guys.
yeah,
Sorry.
It's like, go away, Jacob. You're like, don't
I'm
even
telling
try
your
it.
dad.
Yeah, it's like, don't even come out here. Like the car's just talking to him in the garage.
Exactly.
Don't even come out here.
It didn't work last
Yeah.
time. It's not working this
Not
time.
even
Correct.
letting you
Yeah,
in.
Access denied. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, go inside. I'm charging. Get away from me. But interesting times and exciting. You guys being a dealership, and you guys probably seeing the changing of the guard as far as like the bleeding the combustion engine out, and then having the electric stuff coming in, and it's just kind of interesting. The demographic of people probably is going to change too. The customer base, we talked about
Absolutely.
that before. Like people are going to be afraid of this new car, and some are super excited about it. So it's mixed reviews already, and
And it's and it probably, I mean, the Taycan is going to be a really cool and an amazing vehicle, and it's really going to push the market. And right now Tesla they're kind of the only name in the game,
Yeah,
right? I mean, for a luxury
exactly.
electric vehicle, and so it's going to push them a little bit. And so it's an exciting time. This
Yeah.
is probably the most, one of the most significant times in Porsche's
yeah,
history, I think.
exactly. And it's upon us. We're going to be alive during it, so that's exciting too. I mean, yeah, we saw history being made with Tesla, but like from a big manufacturing standpoint now and a luxury car standpoint, like with
buckle
the
up.
fit and finish
You
and
got
the
real competitors
yeah,
coming now.
Yeah, the
Mercedes,
QC,
BMW,
the
everybody.
QC and the fit and finish, that's all coming now, guys. So it's like it's going to be amazing to see these things like be here in the next year or two, right?
And they're all just going to make everybody's going to make each other better, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of that's
and
one
that
of
just
the
breeds
goals.
that, then right, the competition behind it, right? Like where you don't have a monopoly anymore, where everybody's like,
100%.
why would I go to you? Your fit and finish is garbage. Like
Yeah,
I'm going
right.
to go here because I got the Porsche fit and finish, and like this
and the
makes total
Porsche
sense.
quality and the repeatability of the performance, and I mean, just
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be that close.
Yeah.
I think the car is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I really.
well, the
do. I
nice
think
thing
it's
that
gonna be
I've heard from
fantastic.
the select few of the journalists who did get to review the car for the little bits that they got to drive it is what was really exciting for me is to hear from a third party say it feels very Porsche in here.
Yes.
And that's what we all want, right? As
Yes.
Porsche files, like that's the exciting part is like you definitely feel like you're in a Porsche.
Right. It's the fact that it's electric is cool.
Yeah.
But it still needs to be
Of
a
course.
Porsche.
Yeah,
It still
you-
needs to earn that badge on the front of
Exactly.
it. Right? I
You
mean,
don't want to feel like you're riding in an empty vessel, right?
Agreed.
So yeah, I think we beat that down good enough, and I think that's great. So another, interesting thing. So like you being a Porsche file, like growing up, working at the Porsche stuff, like almost kind of like essentially living the dream minus being a race car driver or something like that,
Sure.
always being around the crest and things like that. So I know you have a lot of Porsche knowledge, and we're just kind of curious, like, because we all like to ask this, just of guests and things like that. So what's your all-time favorite Porsche, and why is it your favorite Porsche?
Man.
I know it's a big
yeah,
one, and there's a
so-
lot to choose from.
Couple.
One car that I mean, the Carrera GT is probably the car that comes to mind
I like
immediately.
that.
Very
Yeah.
good choice.
I remember when that car came out. I
Uh-huh.
was in high school, and I remember when we got the first one. It was the first car I had seen come off a special truck and totally wrapped in like it was
Uh-huh.
like. They were transporting the thing to Area 51
Yeah.
or something like that. And I actually I did a physics project in my senior year of high school on downforce, and that you could pick your
Oh,
topic.
that's
So
super
I picked
cool.
that, and I had
Really
the
cool.
sales manager at the time, and I knew my physics teacher was a car guy and somebody that liked Porsche.
So
I
you're
had
playing
the
to your audience.
Totally, man. So I had my sales manager bring the car to the school.
What?
So I did like the presentation in the class, and then we went outside and we did a walk around on a Carrera GT. blip the throttle and the whole thing.
my
And so it was like a
goodness.
done deal.
Yeah,
It was
I was
an
gonna say, you
A+,
could have presented
one of the
nothing.
few A's I got when I was in high school. But,
Yeah, that's a
but
done
it was
deal.
A proud
That thing
one.
shows up, and it's like, I don't care what you wrote. It could have been the worst presentation in the world, but that this is here.
Yes,
Automatic A.
Exactly. So that's probably the car. If I was going to go out and buy any Porsche right now, it would be a Carrera GT. But of course, 959 predecessor.
Yeah.
I think the new stuff's great. I mean, it's hard to pick one.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say,
so
right?
you have to go to the unobtainable ones almost, right?
They have such a hit list, right? Like, and it's like, how do you only pick one, right? It's impossible.
It's impossible.
And plus, it's an infectious brand, so it's impossible. They keep coming out with hits, one right after another, and you're like, just when you think it couldn't get any better, you went and did this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. No. Absolutely. So, I mean, that's probably the car that's just stuck with me. The noise that it makes. I mean, both of you guys have heard the car.
Yeah.
I mean,
Super special. I totally agree with you. That's a very, very great choice. I like that choice a lot. I mean, that is a very special. You're the first one that's ever said that, but not that it's not. Like everybody has their own flavor, but that is a super special car, super special power plant. Like, that car was supposed to go racing.
Right.
It didn't. So then, okay, well, we got it. Let's make it.
Right.
And
it can kill you.
Yeah.
I think that's, to me, that's something that, like,
and it's a manual.
And it exactly.
Yeah.
Teak shifter.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Yeah. It's an awesome car.
What color was it?
It was GT silver.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So
the only V10 Porsches ever made for the road. Too.
Man.
I mean, it's kind of,
and
it's
probably one of the best.
Probably will
cars
never
in
happen
history.
again, especially what we just talked about, going electrification. So it's like,
I don't think
you're never going to see a
yeah.
naturally aspirated V10 from the Crest ever again.
No.
You might. It's going to be pretty soon before you won't see a V10 from anybody.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I think it's something everybody's going forced induction.
Yeah.
It's smaller displacements, and so gone are the days of the kind of monster power NA cars.
Liters, yeah.
I know this is going to sound pretentious, but for the longest time, like, you could pick one of those up on secondhand market, obviously before, probably, what are we in, like 19 now? Probably like in 2010 or something like for like $300,000.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of insane to think about that, though, because
there were dealers giving discounts on it.
Yeah, it's such a special car that you're like, wait a minute, like, how is this not like 1.3? What do you mean
Right.
it's like $300,000?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
And just people, like, because you think of, like, something else, like from Italy at the time, where people are spending $350, $400 for something new, and it's like,
on regular stuff.
and you're like, what?
Right. I mean,
Yeah, this is
regular-
that's what I'm
you know,
saying. It's like this. That's a production car you guys are buying for $50,000 more than this.
Right.
Like, and that's an automatic, like, paddle shift thing.
This is a race car.
Yeah,
with
this
a
was.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they'll never make this again, and I guess it just didn't click for people. I don't know, like,
I think they initially they built too many of them too quickly.
Yeah.
And that just for that very first part of the time for the
So it
market.
wasn't limited enough.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of it. And then once people really, the cat got out of the bag, and it's like, wow, this thing is really, really special.
Uh-huh.
Then everybody gobbled them up, and now they're, now I don't think you can get one for $500,000.
No, you can't. Yeah, I think
probably
800 now. And I still think it's an undervalued car, because even at that money, if you have the means, and if you're a player in that market where you're shopping a price, like, I think there's nothing else out there is as special for that price.
I agree. I totally agree.
I mean, how can you come anywhere
It looks
close to
new
that?
still.
Yeah, of
It
course.
looks brand new still.
And then that sound, obviously, it will never get old, ever.
No, that's
That
bottled
comes out of
Lamar.
that. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, the
Like,
car is fabulous.
Yeah, but great choice, by the way. Absolutely great choice. So I know we touched earlier on the conversation, so let's kind of like talk a little bit about this. I know you were saying, like, possibly if you might get a new 992. I would just like to hear your spec and 992
Okay,
and
cool.
and why.
Yeah. So we have a new color coming out called Gentian Blue.
Okay.
And that's the color. I think if I wasn't going to, PTS, we talked about this
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
before we started, that you can go so many directions once you talk about PTS. But on the color palette that we have now, Gentian Blue, it's kind of like an aqua blue metallic for some of the, some of the guys
nice.
are familiar with the colors. It's
Okay.
a little darker than aqua blue metallic,
Okay.
but gorgeous. So that black full leather interior, chalk stitching. chalk inserts in the seats.
Nice.
I haven't thought about this at all. Black
No,
Carrera
not at all.
Black Carrera S wheels, sport pack. I mean, if money doesn't matter, all the accoutrement.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything.
Burmester,
Yeah,
give me it
Burmester,
all,
yeah.
man. Yeah, give me it all.
Nice. I like that. So would you get the paddle shift one, or would you
No
wait?
way.
Would you wait for the manual?
Stick for
Yeah.
sure. 100%.
Good for you.
Yep.
Good for you.
absolutely. I can't say enough about PDK, but
Yeah.
I've owned one car that wasn't a manual. I'm a fan of the 3
and
pedals. for
honestly,
sure.
like, get it while you can, right? Because it's going to still be a rare bird.
Yeah,
You're
that's another
lucky
thing
that
that's gonna
Porsche's still
come.
offering that.
Yep, and I will say, guys, anybody in the North American market that's listening to this, if you like manuals, buy them. We are one of the last holdouts. I mean, this is one of the last markets for manual transmissions, like on the planet. It's one of the
Absolutely.
reasons why Porsche still does it.
Yeah, great point too. Because you're not to talk about brand transition, but like BMW, that's not even an option in their entire lineup, no matter
and
what.
A lot of cars, yeah. I think you can get an M2 in a manual.
Yeah, and I think that even like this might be the last year to do it.
Right.
Though. Like,
when was the last time you could get a manual Ferrari?
Yeah.
10
Yeah.
years?
Yeah,
probably,
exactly.
right? 430,
Yeah, if
I
you're
think?
lucky. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
And same thing anywhere else, any high end like luxury, sedan or any sports coupe or anything like that. So great point, and it's a last of a dying breed, and it's shocking, but actually I'm super happy that Porsche's offering that. You're right.
Yeah,
I agree. That shows that they're, again, being aware of their history, being aware of like what the the fundamentalists might want for that have been with the brand for a long time.
Yeah,
So
and again, it says back to staying power and how loyal they're one of the few brands where they actually do listen to their people, right? Because even with like high power money in the Italian market, those guys will cry about stuff and they still don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like, well,
They're like,
I
whatever.
don't care.
This is why we make. This is how
You'll
we're
still
making
buy
the
it for
car.
400,000, and
Or don't.
Yeah. And
Or
like,
don't,
or
and we
maybe
don't
you should
care.
come over to Porsche and they'll listen to you. Like,
Yes. Yeah. So Porsche, they're very aware of the following and the customer base and what they want, and they listen to it, and so it's nice to know that. Especially from a dealer.
Yeah,
I mean, from a
exactly.
dealer standpoint, it's nice to know.
Well,
that
it makes
the
it easier for
company
you
cares.
guys to sell
Yep,
the
to sell
product,
stuff,
right?
yeah.
Because like you have the buy-in from like the AG group, and you're just like, okay, they're building cars we can sell. Like,
Right.
how are we supposed to sell this stuff when
Right.
people
You gotta,
don't want these
we
cars?
believe.
Yeah, exactly.
We get their why, right, and we
Yeah,
believe
exactly.
it, and so it's nice to know that they reciprocate it. Too.
Exactly. Everybody made that outcry of like, oh, we want the flat six back in the Cayman. We want this. We want this. Okay, we're bringing it back. Like,
Right.
put your money where your mouth is, customers.
Come
Like,
by, get a GT4, get
Yeah.
that's
you want it? Okay,
Yeah.
buy it then.
Sure.
Otherwise they're going to take it away from you.
exactly. If
Same-
they're not selling, then
Yeah.
they're going to stop making the car.
Same thing with
right?
the manual, right, guys? Like what Chris said, if you're in the North American market and if you're a shopper for a 992, you better buy the manual one.
Yep.
Like, buy it while you can, because
so we can get them.
Exactly.
we want to be able to get them.
exactly,
Too, so.
and definitely. So great points, and thank you for sharing all that stuff. Just want to go ahead and say a big thank you to everybody, here with the Reeves family, and like, accommodating us and letting
Our
us come
pleasure.
into
Thank
your, showroom. And you guys have such a beautiful setup here, and they have a ton of awesome,
lot of cars.
new inventory and secondhand inventory here. Like, we're looking outside as, a GT4 out there. There's a freaking turbo SE hybrid out there,
Sport Turismo.
Sport Turismo.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful cars here at this dealership. And if you guys are ever interested in anything, first or second hand, definitely give these guys a call. They're
Please
first rate guys. Talk to Chris himself. He's world famous now. He's
That's
been on
right.
P-Card
Yeah,
Talk.
That's it, man. I'm
you're
a hit.
hearing his voice now. So now if you hear him on the phone, you know it's actually him. You know what he sounds like. You're
I
like,
will autograph your brochures if you'd like.
They're like, you're the guy. You're the guy that I heard on the podcast. You're like, yeah, I'm him. So no, but in all seriousness,
No
like,
flash photography, please.
exactly. You're like, I'll sign your dealer thing at the end when they're signing the deal at the end.
for sure.
But again, thank you guys so much for letting us come in here and come in here and do reviews with you guys and do all these great things that we're so excited to have this partnership with you guys. And everyone listening out there, like, this is what it's about, to have like a partnership with a place who actually gets it.
Absolutely.
Like, there is just as much as enthusiasts as we are. Like, Chris walks out of here and puts a t-shirt or a polo on. He's just like us. He's in love with the brand.
Yep.
He just happens to walk through the door and he puts a shirt and tie on, and he gets to sell an awesome product.
We get to make the streets of Tampa a more beautiful place.
Exactly, right?
Like
Like
as
this-
many Porsches as we can.
Exactly, the beautiful sounds and everything like that. But I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, Aaron?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Chris, for coming
you.
on the show tonight and spending some time with us. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of P-Car Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at P-Car Talk or online at pcartalk.com.